First story. OP's stepsister claims to be pregnant with OP's boyfriend's child. Sorry, weird title. So I met my 25F boyfriend, Tim 26M3 5 years ago. We hit it off, he was great and sweet, and we get along perfectly. Until I introduced him to my family, my mother had gotten remarried a few months earlier. I like my stepdad, and we get along fine with my stepsister, Sarah, who is 26 years old. We are friendly, but not besties by any means. She is kind of an intense party girl, and being in our 20s, we only saw each other at family events. So I introduced Tim to my family, at which point we learned that Sarah used to date Tim when they were 20. It was only a few months, and Tim said they broke up because she made out with another guy at a nightclub while drunk. Sarah got upset and started saying I had to break up with him because it was weird. She called Tim her sloppy seconds and tried to get our parents to force us to break up. I said no. It had been years since they'd been together, and I didn't even know Sarah when she was dating Tim. I got pretty upset because my family jumped on the bandwagon of saying we should break up. For the past few years, at any family gathering, Sarah would mention how they used to date and act like I stole her boyfriend, and she has been selling that narrative to my family and friends. It became obvious that she was jealous, but I liked Tim, so we just ignored it and kept dating. So now, a few years later, Tim and I live together, and we've been talking about marriage and stuff. I recently had a conversation with my mom about how I thought Tim was going to propose because he's not exactly subtle, and we've talked about this for a while. At which point Sarah, who had just moved back in with her parents, walked in. She started asking a bunch of invasive questions about our relationship and being weird. Sarah is 4 months pregnant. The father, she said, was some deadbeat guy she'd hooked up with who wants nothing to do with her, but she wants to keep the baby. I'd been making an effort to take her to appointments, offer to help babysit, and try to be excited for her. Until a week ago, when my stepdad sent me a long text saying I couldn't marry Tim because he was the real father of Sarah's baby. I was immediately very upset and confronted Tim, who was completely shocked and said Sarah was lying. He said there's no way, and he didn't cheat on me, and he would gladly have a paternity test to prove that. Unsure, I asked Sarah for more details about when they slept together, which she says happened a few times. She was shaky and went back and forth on details. The dates and times don't match up with what I can remember of what Tim and I have been doing. She also said she came to our house to see him, but since COVID, I've been working from home, so I can't imagine that they managed that. I'm pretty sure now that she's lying to get us to break up because she's still jealous, but now my family is involved and has been sending me hateful messages saying I need to break up with Tim and let him be with Sarah. She's telling everyone he's in love with her and I'm keeping him from her. She has no proof and he strictly denied everything. I texted her, asking for proof of any of this happening, and she sent me some fake Photoshop screenshots that I can tell are fake. She's put Tim's name over a friend's number and pretended he was messaging her. I checked, and the friend all but admitted it to me and tried to laugh it off. She badly photoshopped the timestamps. I actually don't know what to do now. I believe Tim and I are still together, but this has kind of thrown a wedge in everything. Sarah has poisoned my relationship with our parents and my family. I feel sick to my stomach, and Sarah is now saying she won't give me a paternity test. For now, I've cut everyone off except Tim, but I don't know what to do now. Update. I had kind of forgotten about this post because life has been so hectic, but the baby was born yesterday and reminded me of this. A few people have been asking for updates, so I spoke to my parents, and Tim offered to do a paternity test. We gave them an ultimatum to believe me or have me out of their lives. Initially, my parents backed Sarah, mostly because she was pregnant and had nobody else. The deadbeat who knocked Sarah up reached out to me privately because he had been sure that he fathered Sarah's baby, as they'd been hooking up at the time, and he wasn't sure what was going on. Sarah told him she was having the pregnancy terminated, apparently. Deadbeat reached out to my parents and said he wanted to fully support the child and Sarah. It turns out he's a plumber with a very good income and wants to be a dad to his kid. But he doesn't want to be with Sarah at all. Sarah still won't admit to lying about the affair, but after realizing people weren't falling for it, she switched to faking a mental illness to cover for her deception. I do believe she is mentally unwell, just not in the way she says it. I have also figured out what a master manipulator she is. She fed my parents tidbits and small lies to make her giant lie seem more credible. I tried to slowly turn them against me so they more easily believed Tim was in love with Sarah. Things are still strained with my family, but I feel I'm making progress, and Sarah has moved on to getting attention for being pregnant or sick, so she's not obsessing over Tim anymore, though I refuse to be around her. So baby was born today. I pray for that little guy. It's going to be a long and difficult life with that mother. My cousin went to visit and sent me a photo of the birth certificate. My father is listed as a deadbeat guy. And finally, Tim did propose, but we're planning a long engagement. Sarah is not invited to the wedding. Second story. A woman finds out her boyfriend is married. AITA for confronting my boyfriend with his wife in public. So I know how the title sounds, but hear me out. I 26F started dating my now boyfriend 35M, and we have been dating for 7 months. A month ago, he told me he had to talk to me about something important. I honestly thought maybe he just wanted to break up with me, but what he said was so much worse. My boyfriend sat me down and said that there was a problem, the problem being that he's falling in love with me. When he said that, I got so confused that I didn't understand what the problem was. I asked him why that was a problem, and that's when he told me that he's actually married and has been divorced and lied about his age. He's actually 42. I sat there shocked, and I didn't know what to say. When I finally came out of shock, I got up, grabbed my stuff, and told him to never call or text me again. He tried saying what most cheaters do, that I was different, his wife and him hadn't been happy in a really long time, and he was considering getting a divorce. I still grabbed my stuff and left. I didn't think twice about it. The problem came about 2 weeks ago, when my period was 2 months late. I wasn't worried because I am extremely irregular, but after being late for a second month, I decided to take an EPT. It was positive. I thought maybe it was a false positive and took 6 more tests, and they were all positive. I was so upset that I cried out of shock and anger because of the situation as a whole. I called my now ex-boyfriend, but he didn't answer. I texted him, telling him I needed to talk to him, and there was radio silence. After days of calling and texting, he finally answered the phone and said if I was pregnant, he didn't think it was his. He stopped texting and calling and hung up. I was livid. How dare he? I wasn't the one lying and cheating. Now that I'm pregnant, I would have to explain to my family the real reason I broke up with him and tell them I'm pregnant. Fast forward to Mother's Day weekend. My family and I went out to dinner Saturday night to celebrate. I'm about 12 weeks along in my pregnancy and have to pee all the time. As I was walking to the bathroom, I saw my lying ex, and he was there with his family or friends and, based on his body language, his wife. I was so hurt and angry about everything that I didn't think before acting. I went to their table and introduced myself. I told everyone at the table what happened from start to finish, showed them pictures of us together, and sent them texts. As a final note, I announced my pregnancy before leaving the table. I grabbed his drink and threw it at him. I then looked over at his wife. She was bawling. I felt so bad, but I was so hurt and angry. Did I take it too far, Ada? Should I have done things differently? Edit, he doesn't have children. His wife and he were having dinner with all the adults at their table. My family was celebrating Mother's Day. I'm considering terminating the pregnancy, but have not decided one way or the other. First update added as an edit, so I'm unsure of the date. Update, his wife reached out to me and wanted to meet up. I met up with her, and I felt like it was the least I could do after everything that happened. She thanked me for everything I did and said she let me know she filed for divorce. She had enough of the lies and cheating. I was one of many over the course of their marriage. She told me I was the first woman to actually present pictures, text, a pregnancy test, and an ultrasound, and she felt I was being genuine about what happened. I apologized, saying I never wanted to embarrass her. I was just so angry that I saw red. I told her that if I had known he was married, I would have never dated him. She told me not to worry and believe me, especially with what I did when I saw him. She apologized to me for everything he did. This woman is a freaking saint. She deserves better. We cried about everything we've been through and comforted each other through this mess he created. I felt so much better having a heart-to-heart with her and wish her the best. It was no surprise that he came looking for me, begging me to forgive him. I told him to get lost, and I never wanted to see him again, especially after saying the baby was not his. I wasn't surprised he tried coming back, especially after his wife filed for divorce. When it comes to my baby, there is also an update. After a lot of thinking, I decided to keep my baby. Unfortunately, I was having issues with some bleeding due to the fetus not being fully attached properly to my uterine wall. While on bed rest this past week, the bleeding got worse and I lost my baby. After having the miscarriage, it's been a very difficult time. I know everything happens for a reason, but it really hurts. I have a lot of guilt surrounding the miscarriage because I wanted an abortion, so I partially blame myself. So now I'm just taking some time to heal and grieve for my baby. Thank you for all of the advice and comments. Subdate. Things are good now after a long healing process. I started fresh. My miscarriage took a very hard toll on my body, and there were lots of complications post-miscarriage. After finally healing properly physically and getting cleared by my doctor post-miscarriage, I decided to do something for myself. My job is completely remote, so I have been traveling a lot, living in different places for a few months before exploring something new. My primary focus now is healing spiritually and mentally after such a difficult time. Even though losing my baby was awful, I have a fresh start where I can be completely free of everything that happened. His ex-wife, because she did get a divorce, and I keep in touch. We have been a great support system for one another during a very challenging time, but I'm thriving and persevering.